Set. 4, 3, 1.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Sunday Morning Quarterback. Today, we are four pastors who love ministry, leadership, and sports. Man, today is a good day for me. I get to interview my former youth pastor, Pastor Jonathan Lawson, coming all the way from North Carolina. Jonathan, what's going on today, sir?
Man, it is so great to be in the company of three guys I deeply respect, and definitely to be with you, Joseph. So, man, what an honor to be here.
Love it, love it. We got Mr. Top Gun coming up back from the beach. He's in Virginia. John chilling at Starbucks. You doing all right today?
Doing well up here in Virginia, God's country, doing the work of the Lord.
There you go. Dad, what's going on in your pool house in Nashville?
Well, it feels like I'm about to float away. They say we're getting 5 inches. It feels more like 5 feet of rain. So rain, nothing but rain here in Nashville.
Oh, boy, nobody likes that. Man, it's so hard to plan any summer events, especially for young adults and teens, because it's like rains every other day, and you just don't even know. But anyway, hey, fellas, let's start off with some sports now. Dad, just want to let you know, we got some Carolina Panther fans on with us today. And Adam's not on, but he's a Panther fan too, so he's going to love this topic. So, John, I'm going to start with you first. What is Bryce Young's ceiling as an NFL quarterback, and can he finally be the one post Cam Newton that can turn the team around? What do you think?
Oh, man, let's hope so. I mean, right? Like, we're at this point. If you would have asked me this question about an Alabama quarterback 10 years ago, I would have said no chance, right? When you turn out A.J. McCarron and these other guys. But let's be honest, you got Jalen Hurts, you got Tua, now you're starting to create an environment of turning out good quality NFL quarterbacks. I think Bryce Young's going to be a good quality NFL quarterback. He reads the defense well, gets a little knock because he's 5'10" and less than 100 pounds or 200 pounds. But I think if you really look at it, you're looking around, you're saying, let's be honest, Saban's done a good job of moving away from a run-heavy offense into some pretty prolific passers. I think we have a good opportunity to see that happen. I think the ceiling is very, very high.
Very good future there. Jonathan, what do you think? You like your new quarterback, and what do you see for the future?
I agree with John. I don't think we've had a great prospect since Cam's great days. What I love the most is his locker room presence. You can't deny he's a genius. He's got something that he can bring. He knows the playbook. He's able to do it. He's influential with the other guys. They're already voicing their respect. We've not had that in a while. We've not had the locker room chat and conversation going on. So again, I think those pros outweigh a lot of the cons, like John's talking about with the size. I mean, that is a concern, but I mean, he's got the accuracy. He's got a fireball. If he can get over the line, he's going to make a pass. And so he's the best chance we've seen in a long time. I'm excited.
All right, Dad, they're having some excitement. Why don't you give them a little truth serum? What as the outsider, what do you think? What do you see?
Anytime you start off with character, that's usually a bad serum for lack of talent. Now, with that being said,
are you talking about Dak again?
Hey,
we're not talking about character there.
Let's leave that about that. He's tremendous character, great leader. We're going to see. I think that he needs a team around him. We haven't seen him without good players. I mean, he comes from Alabama. They've got loads of talent. So we'll see what he can do when he goes to a team where they don't have the talent that Alabama has. So I think from a mental standpoint, I think he's going to do great. Character standpoint, but can he carry a team when he's the best player? So we'll see. We'll see. I think if you got a good coach, you put good players around him, I think he can take them pretty far. But what can he do with average talent? And right now, that's what Carolina has.
Cool. Go ahead, John.
I'll just jump in. I think that's probably the question mark, is the receiving core got quite a big shakeup, and you have a front runner and a second round draft pick, Mingo, out of Ole Miss. So I agree to a point that yes, there's not as quality especially receivers. But I think the defense is solid and is going to carry him through a good portion of the year, to be honest with you.
Yeah, another cool, exciting thing is it's very rare to have a solid Christian quarterback and a solid Christian coach in Frank Reich. And so I'm hoping David Tepper gives him a long leash. And, it's not going to be success overnight, but I think, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9 wins would be a success. My biggest hope.
I think that's the benefit of hiring Frank as a coach. You've not gone young. You've already made that mistake with Matt Rule. It didn't work out in your favor. So you bring in some good foundation. You bring in a lot of wisdom that can raise up that young quarterback that's got a lot of talent. You channel it all in the right direction. And while he's growing, you start filling in some of those needed positions. I mean, this could be a dominant franchise here before long. But, again, I think the question will be, what do they do with this young talent to raise them up to the next level?
Yep. And even after they traded McCaffrey, they won some big games and were really turning some heads. And so definitely not like a total, reboot startup. My biggest thing with him would be you got to invest up front. You got to put some offensive linemen to protect him. He's going to have to really, really, really be a pocket passer. And they're going to have to establish some rules for him because kind of like, too, if he gets outside of that pocket, he can take some shots and that could – shorten his career. So definitely be fun to watch. I don't know if y'all saw his father when his father interviewed for the draft and he was about to go up. And man, it was just full of wisdom, full of spiritual maturity. And it was cool. It went viral on YouTube. But anytime you see a kid being raised in that type of household, they're set for the future. And he's always going to be, like I said, great at the microphone, great locker room guy. So I'm hopeful for what he can do down the line. All right. We're going to do a fun one here. Everybody loves nostalgia, especially when it comes to sports. And, some of the sports movies provide the best sermon illustrations. They provide the best life moments. When you're 10, you're 12, you're trying to figure out life. And, man, that movie just does it for you. So, fellas, here's a question. And, Jonathan, I'm going to start off with you. What are your top 3 favorite sports movies of all time? And then you got to tell us why. Go, sir.
All right. So I'll start with number 3. Great movie, great story. Even if it is about the Philadelphia Eagles, man, the Vince Papale story, Invincible, incredible football movie. I love it. I've seen it several times. Every time it's a good story. Number 2, Remember the Titans, another football movie. Man, what a culture movie. Again, just love your brother, love your neighbor, just with some incredible football moments, some great hits, great story. And then number 1, the best story of all, we're going to baseball, The Sandlot.
Oh, yeah.
The Sandlot,
Yeah,
best sports movie of all time. Great story. Man, when it's so many quotable lines, incredible laughter. We watch it a lot. My kids love it. I love it. A lot of nostalgia.
Classic. And every time I think of 4th of July, I think of them playing. They say, it's the only night we can play when the star, and everybody's watching the fireworks. And then there's him. He's just trudging the bases, hitting his home run.
That's right.
Classic
Right.
moment. All right, John, what are your top 3? You can start from the bottom and go up.
Man, it's tough because he scooped a few of mine up. So I wouldn't put The Sandlot in at number 3. But it would be a number 4. I have to go with Rudy at number 3. Gotta love Rudy. Underdog story, opportunity to reflect on the good days of the Fighting Irish as well. But yeah, just a great movie. Remember growing up watching as a kid. Really, really enjoyed that. Number 2 has to be Remember the Titans. Jonathan's right on point.
Yeah,
it's a great movie. It's got so many quotable lines. It has a lot of cultural within it. Has an opportunity for leadership. You see some guys coming of age in it. It's just a good all-around movie to really reflect on. And number 1, and probably overlooked because it's not really considered a sport, but I have to go with Rocky. Rocky is a great movie. Boxing is a sport usually overlooked, but honestly formative for my life.
Oh.
Just call it what it is. All of them, they keep making them. I keep watching them. I don't care how bad it is. I have to watch them. And so, but if we had to roll them up in particular order, Rocky 4 is great. Then Rocky 1, and then Rocky 2, and then Rocky 3, and then the rest of them don't really matter. It is what it is.
Oh, Dad, before I pass you, I'm going to go because I think John looked at my list. I didn't know where he was going with that one. But my number 3, I'll throw one out there that's kind of a little older and it's kind of an underdog. I don't know if y'all remember the movie We Are Marshall. Oh, man, great movie about how the team dies and they have to recoup it. And just one of those that pulls at your heartstrings and creates belief. And anytime I watch that one, I got to have a box of tissues. So great football movie. I agree. Remember the Titans number 2, which, John, it's actually cool being in Virginia now because where we grew up in Virginia, we weren't very far from that high school. And so I think that was such a formative movie just for, attitude respects leadership. Just so many quotes I use all the time in sermons when I'm working with people. And absolutely right, John. Rocky 4 was so formative in my life. I'm kind of at that place now. My daughter turned 5 yesterday, and I asked my wife, I said, what age can I start introducing her to Rocky? I got to get the TV version with some of the language, but like some of the scenes. Like, I don't know if y'all saw that video. It's like this little 4-year-old kid, and it's a dun 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 dun, and then the kid's sitting there doing, and he's memorized. That was me as a kid, man. Like over and over, and we had the cassette tapes, and we watched it over and over. And then I was finally old enough to watch Rocky 5, where they like took all his money away. I was like, Dad, what is this? What are they doing to Rocky? And then thankfully they brought it back and restored him. And I'm not sure if y'all watched the Creed movies. Creed 1 and 2 were excellent. Rocky wasn't in Creed 3, the newest one, but they've been great. And I thought they did a good job of like honoring the past, through the story of Adonis and honoring Rocky. And so I loved what they did with it. So, Dad, what are your top 3? I imagine we'll hear some of those, but what are they?
Well, how can you forget Space Jam? Come on, Space Jam.
Okay.
No, I'm just joking. No. Actually, John hit every single one of mine. Mine is Rudy. It's Americana, man. You're talking right in the middle of the country, working bootstraps, pulling yourselves up, and then, the classic. I just watched it a couple of days ago and made my father-in-law, my mother-in-law, and my Pam's aunt watch it. And then I'm like, oh, we can't watch it. So you got to watch the end. You got to watch when he gets carried off and, he's running around the football field, for the kickoff. And then like, stay in. He's like, where do I go? Just get the quarterback. And so that's just Americana. And of course, Mr. Denzel Washington, enough said on that. But number 1, of course, Yo, Adrian. I did it. One of the classic lines of all time.
Oh, yeah.
You can learn all kinds of things about life. Perseverance, toughness, don't quit. But my favorite of all was probably, I think it was just called Rocky Balboa. It was when his wife died. And he's getting all those, the beasts out. And so there was a lot of great meaning in that. And so I think that was one of his great writing of a film that I've seen in a long time. So, through the story of Rocky, it takes you through so many scenes of life and scenarios. So I really like it. He did a good job.
That one.
Well, let me kick in here. If someone creates a movie called Drug Ring, a huddle in the Dallas Cowboys locker room, it will immediately go to my number 1 list as we go through Emmitt Smith, Michael Irving, and some of those moments. So just throwing that in there for Cowboys. I want to get to the Cowboys for you guys.
That's going to be that
if they would have stayed out of those drugs, you may have 4 or 5 in a row. That's how good they were.
Hey, that's going to be that Netflix uncensored after Jerry passes 10 years from now.
I haven't had it so far.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but Dad, talk about Rocky 5. I always, how you have just movie quotes that just pop in your head all the time. I always think, and I say it to Braley, the Rocky 5, it's about how hard you get hit and keep moving forward.
Yep.
And so
that's
that's
right.
one that always goes.
One of my proudest moments having Joseph quote Rocky lines. I did a good job. I did a good job.
Yep. And you know, one of the first big parts of my wife and I's premarital counseling is I told her she had to watch Rocky with me. That was the ultimate test. And she had never seen him. And so, man, we sat through and then you watch some of you watch Rocky 1, you're like, man, I thought this movie's a little bit better. And then we started to get to 2 and 3 and it kind of picks up.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's funny. Well, hey,
Hey,
fellas,
wait. I gotta give you one line. What do you think about that Rocky 2? When he quit, he's not gonna do it. His wife has the baby, and she's like, "Come here, win." And then the music comes, and then his man is like, "What are we waiting for?
What are we waiting for?
No,
Take us."
Joseph, it's not what are we waiting for? It's what are we waiting for?
Yeah,
what are we waiting for? You gotta do it right way.
And then he says, "Take us." And then they go to the gym and off to the races. Hey, Dad, be honest. John, I think you might have been there too. One of y'all was in Philadelphia. You ran the steps, did you not?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I ran the steps.
Awesome.
Yep.
I
You gotta run the
yeah.
steps. If
Awesome.
you're gonna be in
Got
Philly, eat a cheesesteak.
It's iconic,
Run the
yeah.
steps. Do it at the same time if you're really American.
Yep, that's right. The only problem is that the Philly cheesesteak was absolutely disgusting. They taste like dirt. They
went to the wrong place.
They chop it up so fine that the meat tastes like dirt. Anyways, I'm getting off subject, but you do see Rocky Balboa right there by the steps, so you got to do it.
Oh, gosh. Good times. Well, we'll put this out on social media this week, and we'll let everybody comment and share their favorite sports movies. But, hey, let's transition to the ministry and leadership segment. And before we jump in, for any of our audience out there today, it's a really cool episode for me because this crew, us four, we're all able to link up in North Carolina. Seems like forever ago. And for those of you who don't know, Jonathan is my former youth pastor. And I remember I was at a time in my
That's old is right.
Oh,
That's old. He's married with kids now.
Yeah.
Got a little gray,
Yeah.
gray in there.
Bad thing is I'm about as bald as he is now too, so I'm not sure what that
That's why
says,
you wear a hat.
Yeah. But anyway, no, Jonathan. I was at a time in my life. I think I was 16 when we started coming to Crossover, and I had started kind of identifying that I had a ministry call in my life. And outside of my family and a few others, I had never seen anybody. Our ministry was more outside the local church. And so you actually gave me one of the first awesome pictures of what a pastor looks like, being vested in the community, having influence. And then you were able to hone me and my skill and, show me the ropes and teach me the ways. And, when you're a young pup in the ministry, you need somebody to slap you around and, hey, do this, don't do this. And, but honestly, even now, as we're building ministries or our church, some of my sweetest moments that I go back to, and, you try and replicate that culture or that vibe. I go back to some of my student ministry days, leading worship. We had this little house. And, man, we had some of the most intimate worship moments where we just turned the lights off. I remember specifically one time you turned the projector off, and it was just black. And I think for me, those times were so formative of learning how to be sensitive to the Spirit, learning how to follow the Lord while leading up front and leading people. And you are like a Swiss Army knife. When we first came, you were leading worship in an awesome way, and then you were preaching and doing discipleship well, and you just left a huge imprint on me, and so I'm forever grateful for that. And I talk about you all the time, or people say, hey, where'd you learn that, or where'd you get that? And I always be like, hey, man, my youth pastor did it well. And so that was something that I don't take advantage of that.
That's very gracious, man. That's very, very gracious. Thank you for that. But I mean, it's always evident when you have students come through that are just, God has just poured out his gifts on, and Joseph, you are one of those. Of course, you come from a great family. It's I hate that it's from a Dallas Cowboy family, but I think that just shows the grace of God in all circumstances. But no, seriously, I mean, I think that's just the evidence of families that have poured into their sons and their daughters, and you see those spiritual gifts. And there's natural gifts, like some kids have singing abilities, and some kids are great communicators, and they're just great in front of people. And Joseph, you are all of those things, but there were so many fingerprints from your mom and dad, and that even extended into your grandparents that had such a investment in your life. And so I was blessed really just to be able to witness it. And in a lot of cases, Joseph, we just kind of gave you a microphone and said, go. And so that was the blessing there. And we had several students that we could do that with. And so it was a sweet time of ministry for me as a leader to watch students that had been invested in through great children's pastors, through great parents, and you just get to continue in that spiritual nourishment and enrichment, and you just watch them become just incredible adults, men and women of God.
Very cool. I appreciate it. And just a side note, every week in our young adult, we do the chair of affirmation, by the way. They're like, where did you get that from? You know, because Gen Z, they don't like to tell each other the feelings of. So I'm like,
hey, I have to be honest, man, the chair of affirmation was something that I experienced from my student pastor. So, you know, to be able to pass that on and to see that, you know, that was formative for me to be affirmed, to hear somebody affirm your gifts. And, you know, it was important for me. We wanted to make that a part of that, you know, to value one another, to love one another, to affirm and call out those good things.
And basically, for those of you out there, whenever it's your birthday, you get to sit in the chair of affirmation and be affirmed by your peers. And so just to kind of connect the dots, because John will have some of your people, Dad some of your people, Jonathan some of your people. So at one point in 2009, 10, 11, we were all in North Carolina, a part of the same church. John was a school teacher. Dad was working at Costco doing chickens. Jonathan was a youth pastor. I was a sophomore, junior in high school. And then to see, you know, 10, 15 years ago to where the Lord has planted us and is using each of us now, not only a credit to that church and Daryl and that whole pastor, but now just seeing how the Lord's hand is on us. It's very cool. And so that's awesome. So shout out to any of you, you crossover people out there. Jonathan, before we jump into our first ministry topic, I wanted to also bring you on just to kind of share a little bit about your journey over the past few years. And let me tell you this, even the people that didn't ever know you personally, like your story amongst pastors had just really, like, I know a lot of people that when you were going through, I was like, hey, let me tell you about what my youth pastor is going through. And so many were able to pray for you and support you. I think about my grandfather asking about you all the time. And then now that you're kind of on the other side of it, you know, I'm sure you've had to share, you know, it's some variation, but would you just kind of share like what you went through and what the Lord taught you through going through that season?
Sure. So around a year and a half ago, this would have been the 2021, September of 2021, I honestly was leading worship one Sunday and came home for God's blessing to pastors, and had just laid down for a nap. And after church, I just lost the feeling in my legs out of nowhere. I've not had health issues. It really kind of caught us by surprise. I had a lot of pain from the waist up, and I had absolutely no feeling from the waist down. And so I was experiencing what they called a blood clot thunderstorm. And basically blood clots, instead of going up towards the brain, were going down and separating, and they thunderstormed, filled my kidneys, they filled my hips, and cut off all the circulation to my legs. And so honestly, I woke up, things kind of went dark for me, and the next thing I know, I was in ICU, and my body was swollen. If you've ever seen the movie The Nutty Professor, that's I would put my hands up in front of my face. That's probably one of the first things I remember, is putting my hands up and seeing how swollen they were. And I knew this was pretty serious. And so that day that began with a conversation of your kidneys have shut down. They don't work anymore. Your body's not able to relieve pressure. And so I had what was called a double fasciotomy, where they basically cut my legs open, my calves on both sides of both legs. And so I've got some pretty killer scars on both sides now. But you know, that was to relieve the pressure in my body. It ultimately saved my life. But the doctor, I remember the doctor standing at the end of the bed saying, we've cut your legs to relieve the pressure, but honestly, your legs are not responding. There's a good chance that we're going to have to remove both of your legs. And so that's really one of the first conversations I remembered having as my mind was heavily medicated. I was in a lot of pain, dealing with all of this. So people, like you said, Joseph, people begin to pray. Again, praying that my legs would be retained, praying for my body. There was a huge amount of prayer going for my kidneys. I was on constant dialysis around the clock. It was pretty sketchy there for a while. But the church, and when I say church, I mean a global church, rallied in prayer. And again, making a long story, I was in the hospital for about 2 months. So making a long story short, my kidneys began to wake up after several weeks, which was just a huge answer to prayer. My kidneys began to wake up, and I went on to intermittent dialysis, and eventually being able to come off dialysis altogether as my kidneys were restored. The doctors came in and begin to say, well, you're not going to lose both your legs. We think you're going to lose your left leg. And that really was kind of touch and go. I had about 8 surgeries on my left leg to try to retain enough muscle to save my leg. And it was that last surgery. They said, if we have to take any more, we're going to have to take your leg. And that was my last surgery. And so I have both of my legs today. I'm thankful to have that. I've got some pretty wicked scars, and they make for great conversation. But it was a result of a rallying of prayer. And so, honestly, during those 2 months, my body healed a whole lot faster than my mind and my heart. But we would then go into a period of rehab, just getting some physical therapy, learning to walk. I had to learn to stand. I had to learn to walk again, a lot of those things. And a lot of questions, a lot of whys, a lot of battle. And I'm thankful now to be a year and a half, almost 2 years into the mix, and I'm on my 2 legs. I'm learning to handle some of the new ways my body responds to things, but I am still engaged in ministry. I'm giving it all I got, and God has restored not only my body, He's restored my heart and my zeal and my passion for ministry. And so, it's difficult. I'm not going to be so bold to say, man, I would do it all over again. But I can recognize the goodness of God in just an awful, traumatic season of my life.
Dad, John, I'm sure y'all have a question or thought to follow that or to ask. Dad?
Well, I mean, what is the takeaway, the spiritual takeaway in going through all that, that you think that you received from that? Is there something spiritually, some particular nuggets within wisdom, or what do you take away from something like that?
No, honestly, I mean, it's a journey. It's hard to communicate that journey to others, but at the same time, to be aware that why does God save some and not others? I was not the only person in that hospital. I wasn't the only one in ICU. I laid in ICU for weeks, if not close to a month, listening to bells go off when nurses would run to rooms of people that did not make it. And so, there is a lot of just an internal wrestling with God, a wrestling with His goodness and His sovereignty, and beginning this stage, it was such a battle. It was such a fight. There was such an anger in me for this thing I didn't ask for. And one of my pastors came into my hospital room one day and he said, Jonathan, I'm praying that this room will become a sanctuary for you. Mm-hmm. And my room was covered. I just have an incredible group of students. And one of the ways they ministered, the very first Wednesday night after all of this happened, they gathered together and they wrote scripture all over poster boards. And so one day I woke up and my wife had come in and hung these posters all over my room. My room was just filled with colorful poster board, and it just had scripture all over it. And at first I didn't want to see this. I didn't want to read any of these scriptures. And eventually my heart began to change because I had trouble sleeping at night. And at night I would lay there and just stare at the wall and read these posters. I didn't really have a choice. I couldn't move. And so I was just forced to read this scripture. And eventually what was a forceful reading became a birthing of hope within me. And eventually my room turned into a sanctuary for me.
Mm.
As I moved and transitioned out of ICU and into other rooms, what I began to discover is through my circumstance, through my situation, those scriptures stayed with me from room to room. They just got put up in walls. And eventually my sanctuary became a sanctuary for others. Nurses would come in, and I would wake up and find nurses in my room reading the walls, and they would point out, this is my favorite verse. I like this verse right here. And it led to conversations. And so again, it's just one of those things that God will use our dynamic circumstances to accomplish his will in other people. I have incredible friendships now with chaplains and nurses that ministered to me in my season, that have in turn come back to me and said, hey, can you pray for me? Can you walk with me? And I'm so grateful for their investment in my life. Now I get to invest in theirs. And so it's amazing how God can use one circumstance to accomplish his great plan of so many different pathways of ministry that he desires to do.
You know, pastoring is a fraternity unlike any other, in the fact that, you know, I remember just when it happened, and I was telling just some of my friends and my staff who've never met you, you know, I think it hit all of us so different because there's the thought of, man, that could be me. And, you know, when you were going through just the natural thoughts of, you know, man, if he has to lose his legs, like, you know, what about preaching? You know, we stand up and preach, and we do things like that. And just one of the things that I want to speak to before we move on is, like, I even had to come to terms with, you know, we are all used to ministering to people, and that's what we do. And you ask us to, hey, go in there when somebody's family member passes or when this, and we got it. But then when we have to flip it and allow people to minister to us, that's a whole different thing.
Tough.
And then also the thought of, you know, we talk about ministry can so much become a part of our identity. And something like that, just, you know, that being stripped away from you, and then saying, okay, it might look very different. Can I still do this? Like, I don't know. That was just kind of what resonated with me. And I think the pastors around me hearing your story. And so that was just something that I thought was fascinating.
Yeah. And those are thoughts. I mean, you lay there and think, how is this going to change my life? How does this change my heart for ministry? My heart for my students has not changed, but how does this change the way that I'm able to do things? And you know, God makes a way. You know, even I'm not out running any 5Ks. I still have lingering physical, you know, effects because of all that I went through. You know, there's a different mentality. Sometimes we minister through pain. Sometimes we minister through hardship. It doesn't change the ability to minister. We just may have to change the way that we minister.
That's good. That's good. Let's transition to our next question. Jonathan, I'll start with you, and then we'll pass it to John. Wanted to kind of speak to, being that you have a bulk of your ministry has been with Next Gen and students. Here's the question. From a church, ministry, and parenting perspective, what are some of the common denominators that show up or are consistently evident in the kids that take their faith seriously and their desire to follow Jesus?
Wow. You know, I think a big part of that, is just the spiritual investment that they receive at home. And now ultimately, I'm going to say this: God is a father to the fatherless. He is going to pursue his children, no matter the background that kids were raised in. I think of guys like Shane Pruitt. I believe he's been on your show. Incredible testimony of God raising him up and calling him to ministry. He's been an influence in my life, even being able to listen to him. So again, God can do sovereignly whatever he wants to raise up men and women to do his kingdom work. But a lot of those that we see that are successful in that have a home network, have a home system that are supporting them, teaching them, discipling them. You know, discipleship begins in the home. It's intended, it's created to work that way. And so really the students that we see, that next generation that's really changing and influencing culture, has had their culture influenced already as they were growing up within the home.
Good. John, where's your thoughts take you to that question?
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. People come from all different backgrounds, all different stories, moving into pursuit of Christ as he's rightly pursued them. To build on that, I think there's got to be an earnestness to seek out godly counsel and wisdom, what I find is people that are very in their eyes and their mind, very talented or able to do certain things well, they begin to rely on those gifts, and those gifts are good and incredible. But what happens is those gifts begin to outpace their character, and really that character development, in a lot of ways, rendering from God's word, time and prayer, but good godly mentors. So those that seek out mentorship and godly wisdom from other people, even at a young age, 12, 13, 14, you find those students and those kids in a lot of ways looking to hang out with people that are twice their age, 3 times their age, 4 times their age, looking for mentorship, looking for, they're hungry for the gospel, they're hungry for the word of God, they're looking for people to walk alongside of them. I find those people in particular seem to consistently be around in that maturation process that can be expedited based on who's around them, really begins to take root and grow over time. And what they get in the process is the big events in their life, like graduation or getting married, going off to college. They gain extra grandparents, they gain extra mentors. They're in their 60s and 70s and 80s that really begin to shape their life over time. And so in a lot of ways, I find that to be a consistent denominator across time and space.
It's good, Dad. Hey, Dad, before you answer, I was thinking back to your, most people don't know you started off as a youth pastor way, way, way back when, and thinking about to the the 90s, and, just comparing student ministry now to student ministry in the 90s. That's a lot of time there, but what are some common denominators that stuck out to you?
Well, I think a lot of it is, especially when they're younger, it's to have, and it's going to sound a little funny, but let me flush it out. I think if you can be a part of a church that has a right culture where the children begin to have a love affair with church, and then as they begin to get a little older and mature in their faith, then it begins to stream into the understanding of who Jesus is. But I've seen even your daughter Joseph, where she just loves to be at church. She loves the atmosphere of church. She loves the idea of church, and because it starts with what John talked about: people that love on them, influence them. They've got 50 different aunts and 50 different uncles. And so I think it's important for the church to understand its role in the young kids' lives. And that's something that I talk about all the time. And it's important for mom and dad to know the importance of church. And again, we can hit this drum, and I know I hit it a lot. I'm sure you guys do too. But sometimes our moms and dads are more interested in having their son or daughter learn how to hit a baseball or throw a football or, kick a soccer ball. And so their love affair moves to sports, where it is at the top of the list. And so I think, moms and dads, have to do the hard work at home, but then they also have to make sure that they're in the environment of the church so that the kids can really begin to love church. And from that point forward, then go beyond into the understanding of who Jesus is. And then I read a statistic the other day in regards to teens graduating high school, and if they end up staying in church or having that opportunity to go in their own direction. And they said the two main things that they have they've witnessed is if a teen is learned to serve in the local church, and then that was number 2, and then number 1, if they had made Bible study something that they do on their own. And so if a teen is doing their own Bible study and they have been involved in serving the local church, there's a good chance that they're more apt to stay within the church rather than going their own separate ways. So, parents are one thing, but I think it's important for the church to know its role and to create an environment and culture where kids enjoy being there, learning, being inspired by others, and learning exactly who Jesus is and the role of Christianity and church in their life.
And I do agree with that. I echo that. I think you guys are spot on it. The teenagers and the students that we see going the distance love serving God, and they love serving God together. They are being poured into, but they're given the opportunity not only, and this was the deal with Joseph, and has always been the deal, not waiting for them to have opportunity once they hit a certain season of maturation or adulthood, but giving them the opportunity to be the church today, whether that's running a video camera or even leading a Bible study, you know, cutting their teeth at learning how to cultivate an outline, or just sharing what they've learned in devotion, giving them an opportunity to be the influential church of today. And that is a major bridge that keeps them from falling in that massive gap between high school and college, between getting a driver's license and not having one. These are just the major cliffs that we see traditionally in student ministry that students will fall off. Those that stay consistent are those that are plugged in multiple facets of the church. They're able to use their gifts. They're being fruitful in their own personal study, but also in community and sharing in Bible study. And that's, you know, that's what we want to see. We want to see this generation stay consistent, stay and endure, and continue to love serving the church as students, as college aged adults, and into adulthood as they begin to raise their own families, to cultivate that honor for and love of God's church and community.